everybody, welcome to episode 4 of our Minecraft series in Scratch. Today we're going to be adding Steve into the game. So first we'll start off by going into our costumes. We're going to be making a hitbox for our grass cube. Let's duplicate our grass, and I'll call this hitbox, and we're going to be coloring this whole thing in with red. And then just draw a rectangle that covers the exact size of our block. Now that we have a hitbox for grass, we have to make a variable to detect which objects that the player collides with. Let's go to our variables tab and make a variable called block. I'll click for this sprite only and let's press OK. Now, when we start as a clone, let's set block to grass. And I'm just gonna delete this block here so we won't be needing it. Now let's go to our events tab and drag out when I receive message 1. I'll change this to when I receive collisions and then press OK. So when we receive collisions, let's switch our costume to our block. Now let's drag out another when I receive message 1, and I'll make a new message called hitbox. Okay, let's check if the block is equal to nothing. So I'll just delete the 50 in here and leave it with blank. So block is blank. Then let's switch costume to mine. If this isn't, let's switch costume to hitbox. So what that will do, if we are the mining cursor, then we won't switch to hitbox. But if we are, then we will. Okay, now we just need to broadcast. So when green flags click forever, broadcast hitbox. And broadcast collisions and make sure they go in right after each other. Go to front. Alright, now we're here. Let's make our player. I'm gonna upload a sprite and I'm gonna choose Steve. The first thing you notice when you press the green flag is Steve is huge. He's 2 blocks high, so we'll drag in when green flag clicked. Set size 29 when green flags clicked, and let's reset the position by going to X0, Y100. And let's go back to the back layer. We'll be needing a few variables. Let's make an X variable for this, and then we'll make a Y variable. And then an airtime for this sprite only. And lastly, Y velocity for this sprite only. Now let's make a block called update. And then I'll click run without screen refresh. Inside of our update, we'll be having our gravity. So let's drag out change Y velocity by -2. And then we'll also need to detect if we can jump or not. So let's drag out if key space press. And we'll also need to detect if we're on the ground. So let's drag out if airtime is less than 4 right here. And then if it is, we can jump. So let's set Y velocity to 15. Now let's make a block called X, and I'll add an input called amount, and I'll click run without screen refresh. Now we'll be changing the X depending on which way we're moving. So let's drag out change X by amount. Now let's make a new block called position, and we won't need run without screen. Inside of this block, we'll just go to our motion category and drag out go to X, 0, and Y. And inside these inputs, we'll be dragging in our variables X and Y. So after we change X by amount, let's drag out their position block. Now we just need to detect if we're colliding with the floor, and we need to stop ourselves from moving through the wall. Let's if then, and we need to detect if we're touching the hitbox. And previously we made the hitbox red, so let's change this to color red and let's drag out repeat 8. Let's move ourselves up by changing Y by 1, and that will need a position block. So if not touching color red, then we are not touching the ground anymore. So let's stop ourselves from moving any further by using a stop this script. So let's move back down by using a change Y by -8 since we moved up 8. Let's move back down 8. Repeat until not touching color red. So I'm just gonna duplicate this block and we'll need to move ourselves out of the wall. Luckily we have this amount, the amount we moved inside of the wall, so we can reverse ourselves by moving out of the wall. So if we're moving forward, let's drag out if amount is more than 0, then we must have moved to the right. So let's move back out to the left by using change X by -1. Let's move back out to the right. But by using change X by 1, and then we need a position below this if else. Okay, that's it for our movement, left and right. So to test this out, let's drag out our X block, and here's where we can move left and right. Let's go to operators and drag out a multiply block and the second output 8. And here we're going to be using our player input. So I'm going to drag out a minus block, and this is a pretty simple way to get an input for the left or right arrow keys. We'll use key right arrow press minus key left arrow press times 8. Finally, let's drag out the when I receive hitbox. We need to update event position. Now, we just need to reset our X variables back to 0 when the green flag is clicked. So let's just drag out set X to 0 and set Y to 100 since that's where our default position is going to be. And lastly, set Y velocity to 0. Great, now we just need Steve to fall. Let's make a block called Y. Let's add in an input called amount and let's click run without screen refresh. Let's first change airtime by 1 and then change Y by amount. Then we need his position block. And first we need to stop the player from moving inside of the ground. So let's drag out repeat until not touching red. So if we're moving up, then we need to move ourselves down. Let's detect if amount is more than 0. Then if it is, we need to move down. Change Y by -1. And if we're moving down, we need to change Y by 1. So we move out the ground and then we need to set our time to 0. Then finally, we need to position block and we need to set the Y velocity back to 0. Okay. update block, let's drag out Y, and then I'll go to my variables and drag out Y velocity. Before we press play, we need to make a hitbox for our player. And let's right click on Steve, press duplicate, and I'll call this hitbox. I'll select the rectangle tool and I'll change the fill to it. Doesn't actually matter, I'll change it to red. Then let's draw a hitbox that only surrounds his body. We don't need it to cover his arms. And then let's delete his arms. So now we have our hitbox. Let's go back to the code and drag out when I receive hitbox, switch costume to hitbox. And then when I receive collisions, we need to switch back to the Steve costume. Let's go back to our block sprite. And I'll find if can place is true. Let's quickly drag out an if then and detect if we are not touching Steve. Now we'll be fixing this part where I disappear when I touch the left wall. So it's just really simple. This block was in the wrong place. Thank you for watching and bye.